Let me ask you something. How many dreams have you shelved because the timing didn't feel perfect? How many times have you said, I'll start when I'm ready? Here's the truth no one likes to admit. There is no perfect time. It's a phrase we hear often, but few of us take it seriously enough to live by it. Most people spend months, years, even decades waiting for the stars to align, for their finances to improve, for their confidence to grow, for a sign from the universe. We convince ourselves that once things calm down, once we have more clarity, once we feel ready, then we'll take the leap. But the uncomfortable truth is that there is no perfect time. There never has been, and there never will be. The illusion of perfect timing is one of the most dangerous lies we tell ourselves. It disguises itself as patience, wisdom, or maturity, but often it's just fear. Fear dressed up in logic. We tell ourselves we're not procrastinating, we're being strategic. We say we're waiting for the right time because we don't want to fail, but what we're really doing is avoiding discomfort. We're waiting for conditions to be safe, for our inner doubts to vanish, and for some version of perfection that doesn't exist in the real world. If you look at any person who's achieved something meaningful, whether in business, art, health, relationships, or personal growth, you'll find they didn't wait until they felt totally prepared. They acted with uncertainty. They moved with fear. They often started in the middle of chaos, with limited resources and no guarantees. They made mistakes, learned on the go, and adjusted as they moved forward. Their progress didn't come from perfect planning. It came from showing up consistently, even when the circumstances weren't ideal. Think about how much time is wasted in hesitation. Every moment spent waiting is a moment that could have been used for growth. And the longer you wait, the harder it becomes to start. Your brain starts collecting more doubts, more what-ifs, more reasons to hold back. Fear feeds on time. It multiplies in stillness. The more you wait, the louder the voice in your head becomes, the one that tells you you're not good enough, smart enough, strong enough. The only way to silence that voice is through action, not when you're ready, but especially when you're not. Waiting for the right time can also become a convenient excuse to stay in your comfort zone. It feels safer to tell yourself the timing just isn't right than to admit you're scared. It's easier to say you're waiting than to face the truth that you're unsure of what will happen, and that terrifies you. But here's what's even scarier. What happens if you don't start? What happens if you wait too long and the opportunity passes? What if you wake up one day and realize that your window has closed, not because you weren't capable, but because you were too afraid to move? There is no calendar date circled in red when everything will fall into place. Life doesn't operate on your schedule of ideal timing. Things will always feel inconvenient, uncertain, or incomplete. You might never feel 100% ready, and that's okay. Readiness is not a requirement for action. In fact, it's often a byproduct of action. You become ready through doing. Confidence grows after you take the step, not before. Life is happening right now, not in some distant future where conditions are better. The circumstances you're waiting for might never come. The money might not show up. The fear might not go away. The clarity might never fully arrive. But that doesn't mean you can't start. Starting doesn't require perfection. It requires commitment. It requires the courage to say, I'm not ready, but I'm going anyway. The belief that there's a perfect time will rob you of the life you could have lived. Don't let it. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It never was. That idea that to be courageous you must feel bold, fearless, and invincible is a myth that holds countless people back from living the life they truly want. We often imagine that the people we admire, the ones who chase their dreams, speak up, take risks, and stand tall in difficult moments, have something we don't. We assume they're somehow braver by nature, wired differently, blessed with a superhuman confidence that makes fear irrelevant. But the truth is, they feel fear just like anyone else. What makes them courageous isn't a lack of fear. It's their decision to act in spite of it. Fear is natural. It's a biological response designed to protect us. It kept our ancestors alive by warning them of real danger. In today's world, though, fear shows up in more subtle ways. It creeps in when we think about failure, judgment, rejection, or uncertainty. It tells us not to speak our truth, not to take that leap, not to try something new. It whispers, what if you're not good enough? What if you mess up? What if they laugh at you? Fear makes itself sound reasonable, but it rarely serves your growth. That's why courage matters. Courage begins the moment you recognize that fear is present and you move anyway. It's not about eliminating fear, but learning to carry it with you without letting it control you. Being brave doesn't mean you're unshaken. It means you're willing to be shaken and still show up. When you realize this, everything begins to change. You stop waiting to feel fearless before you start. You understand that fear is a part of the process, not a sign to stop, but a signal that you're doing something that matters. The most powerful acts of courage often happen in silence, unnoticed by the world. It's the person who gets out of bed to face another painful day, the one who finally says no to what's hurting them, the one who applies for the job they think they won't get, the one who speaks in the meeting when their voice is shaking. Courage isn't about grand gestures. It's about small, everyday decisions to keep going when quitting would be easier. We grow through discomfort. If you never feel fear, it likely means you're not stretching. You're not reaching for anything beyond your current limits, and that might feel safe, but it won't fulfill you. Staying small, staying hidden, staying silent, that's not peace.
That's fear running the show. Real peace comes from living in alignment with your values and desires, even when it's uncomfortable. Real freedom comes from doing the thing you're scared of and realizing you survive. You might even thrive. Sometimes people wait for fear to pass before they act, but fear often follows courage. It doesn't precede it. The funny thing is, once you act, fear tends to shrink. It's the anticipation, the waiting, the imagining that builds it up into a monster. But when you take a step forward, even a tiny one, you start to see that fear was just a shadow, big only because it was close. The longer you stare at it, the more power it has. The moment you move, it begins to lose its grip. Courage is a skill, not a trait. It's not reserved for a chosen few. It's something you build like a muscle. Every time you act in spite of fear, you become stronger. Every time you choose progress over comfort, you prove to yourself that you are capable of more than you imagine. Over time, what used to terrify you becomes manageable, even routine. Not because the fear vanished, but because you learned to stop giving it the final say. The next time fear shows up, and it will, don't see it as a red light. See it as confirmation that you're stepping into something meaningful. Let it come, let it speak, but don't let it decide. You don't need to be fearless to take action. You just need to be willing to try, willing to risk, willing to feel fear and keep going. Because courage, in its rawest, truest form, is choosing to act when fear is still loud. And that choice, that's what separates a stuck life from a bold one. Action creates clarity. It's a truth that often goes against our instincts. When we're unsure, confused, or stuck, our first response is usually to stop, wait, and think. We believe that if we just analyze things long enough, if we weigh every option carefully, if we plan every step perfectly, then we'll finally feel clear and ready. But in reality, clarity rarely comes from overthinking. It comes from doing. The answers you're looking for are not hiding in your thoughts. They're waiting in your actions. So many people stay frozen in the name of figuring it out. They sit on ideas, second-guess decisions, and hold back from starting because they don't have all the information. But here's the problem. You can only think your way through something for so long. At a certain point, more thinking just leads to more confusion. Your thoughts start looping, your fears get louder, and instead of getting closer to a decision, you become more paralyzed. It feels safe because you're still working on it, but in reality, you're just circling the same doubts over and over. Taking action, any action, breaks that cycle. It gives you real feedback. When you move, you create momentum. You start to see what works, what doesn't, what feels right, and what needs adjusting. And that feedback is something no amount of overthinking can give you. It's experiential clarity. It's the kind of insight you only gain by getting your hands dirty, by stepping into the unknown, by trying and seeing what happens. Even if your first steps are messy or uncertain, they matter. Starting gives you a foundation to build on. You can't steer a parked car, and you can't evolve an idea you haven't put into motion. Clarity often doesn't come before the decision. It comes after. You don't wait for the full picture to move forward. You move forward and the picture starts to form. Each step, each experience, each attempt brings more understanding. This is true in every area of life. Think about relationships. You don't always know from the beginning whether something will work out, but by spending time together, by engaging, by being present, you learn. You get clarity on compatibility, on communication, on values. You figure things out through the process of being in it. The same applies to career paths, creative projects, or personal goals. The more you act, the more data you collect, and that data shapes better decisions. Action also builds confidence, which further sharpens clarity. When you're stuck in your head, doubt tends to dominate. You question your abilities, your worth, your ideas. But when you do something, even something small, you prove to yourself that you're capable. And with each small win, your confidence grows. Confidence gives you a clearer lens to see what's next, what matters, and what aligns with your purpose. It's easy to wait for clarity to come before you act, but that mindset can cost you time, growth, and opportunities. If you're always waiting to be sure, you'll never move. You have to be willing to take the first step in the fog, trusting that the path will reveal itself as you go. The clarity you want is often sitting just one step beyond your comfort zone. You might not know the full plan, you might not feel ready, but you don't need a 5-year roadmap to take a single step. That step, however small, will teach you more than 1,000 hours of sitting still. It will show you what's possible, it will uncover your direction, and it will start to dissolve the fear and confusion that have been holding you back. So the next time you feel unclear, don't retreat into endless thinking. Don't wait for the perfect plan. Choose movement over stagnation. Try something, test an idea, start small if you have to, but start, because clarity doesn't come from waiting. Clarity comes from action. Fear is a sign of growth. Most of us have been conditioned to see fear as a red flag, something to avoid, something that means danger or the potential for failure. From a young age, we're taught to stay where it feels safe, to choose what's predictable, to avoid risk. But what if we've been reading fear all wrong? What if fear isn't a stop sign, but a signal that we're on the edge of something important? The truth is, fear often shows up right before a breakthrough. It doesn't mean you're doing something wrong. It usually means you're doing something that matters. Growth and fear are deeply connected. You cannot grow without leaving your comfort zone, and leaving your comfort zone will almost always trigger fear. That's because your brain is wired to protect you. It wants to keep you in familiar territory, even if that territory isn't serving your highest potential. When you step into the unknown, when you try something new, speak up, take a risk, or chase a dream, your mind sends out warning signals. But these signals aren't proof that you're about to fail. They're proof that you're stretching beyond what you've done before. Think about the moments in your life when you've grown the most. Chances are, they weren't the easy, calm, predictable moments. They were the times when you were challenged, scared, or uncertain. Maybe it was leaving a job, starting a business, speaking your truth, moving to a new place, or ending a relationship that wasn't right. Maybe it was trying something for the first time and having no idea what would happen. Those moments were scary, but they shaped you. They forced you to rise. They pushed you to become more than you were before. And if you're honest, you'd probably agree they were worth it. Fear, when viewed through the right lens, can actually be used as a compass. If something scares you, but also excites you or calls to you, there's a good chance it's pointing toward growth. You're standing on the edge of a possibility, and your fear is simply a natural response to that. It doesn't mean you should turn around. It means you should pay attention. Fear can be a guide. It shows you where the next version of you lives. Many people make the mistake of waiting for fear to disappear before they act. But fear doesn't vanish before you take the leap. It usually shows up because you're about to do something new and meaningful. The key is not to eliminate fear. It's to learn how to walk with it, to understand that it's part of the process, that it's okay to be scared and still take action. In fact, that's exactly where confidence is born. Not in the absence of fear, but in choosing to act despite it. Each time you move through fear, you build resilience. You prove to yourself that fear doesn't control you, that you can do hard things, that you can survive discomfort. And with every step, fear loses a little more of its power. You stop seeing it as a threat and start recognizing it as a teacher. Growth often comes with struggle, discomfort, and uncertainty. These aren't signs that something's wrong. They're signs that something powerful is happening. Fear also keeps you humble. It reminds you that you're human, that you care, that what you're doing matters. If you didn't feel fear, it would mean you were playing it too safe, staying too small, hiding from your potential. Fear is proof that you're leaning into life. It means you're not sleepwalking through your days. You're awake, aware, and brave enough to care deeply about your own journey. So the next time fear shows up, don't try to shut it down or push it away. Acknowledge it, listen to it, let it speak, but don't let it decide. Remind yourself that fear is not the enemy. It's evidence that you're evolving. It's a natural part of the path to something greater. You're not broken because you feel it. You're not weak. You're growing. And growth, real growth, will always bring fear along for the ride. Your future self is waiting. Right now, at this very moment, there's a version of you that's stronger, wiser, more fulfilled, and living the life you keep imagining. That version of you is not a fantasy. It's not some impossible dream. It's real, it's reachable, and it's waiting for you on the other side of action. But here's the catch. You don't just wake up one day and arrive at that future. You have to choose it. You have to start building it, moment by moment, choice by choice, step by step. The distance between where you are and where you want to be isn't filled with magic or luck. It's filled with decisions. And many of those decisions will feel uncomfortable. That's the price of growth. If you want to meet your future self, the one who finally wrote the book, started the business, healed from the pain, broke free from excuses, or stepped fully into their purpose, you have to be willing to move now, not later, not when it's easier, not when things are perfect. Now, we often get trapped in a loop of waiting. We convince ourselves that once we feel more confident, once we have more money, once we feel less afraid, then we'll begin. But all the while, time is passing, and the future version of ourselves stays stuck in a holding pattern, waiting on us to catch up. That person you dream of becoming is not going to come find you. You have to move toward them. They are the result of your consistency, your courage, and your willingness to do the work when it's uncomfortable. Your future self is shaped by what you do when no one is watching, by how you respond when motivation fades, by how you talk to yourself when things don't go according to plan. Every time you push through doubt, every time you take action when it would be easier to make excuses, you cast a vote for the person you are becoming. And slowly, over time, that version of you becomes real, not because you waited for the right moment, but because you created the right habits. It's easy to forget that the small choices matter. That saying no to distraction today helps you become more focused tomorrow. That going to the gym, even when you don't feel like it, builds not just your body, but your identity. That setting boundaries, speaking your truth, taking the risk, starting the project, all of it compounds. And eventually, those choices become a life that looks a lot like the one your future self has been trying to lead you toward all along. There's a silent cost to delay that we don't talk about enough. Every time you put off your goals, every time you say, "I'll do it later," that future version of you gets pushed further into the distance. And over time, that distance can become a canyon. Not because you weren't capable, but because you waited too long to believe in yourself. The dreams don't die because they're impossible. They die because we stop feeding them with action. It's important to understand that becoming your future self isn't about becoming someone else. It's about becoming more of who you already are. The truth is that version of you already exists within you.
You've just been too distracted, too discouraged, or too afraid to bring them to the surface. But they're not some stranger. They're you, after you've decided to stop letting fear drive your decisions. They're you, after you've chosen purpose over comfort. They're you, after you've done the hard things, the boring things, the scary things again and again, until they became normal. Your future self is not waiting for perfection. They're waiting for effort. They're not demanding instant success. They're asking for daily commitment. That version of you wants to be realized, not imagined. And the only way you get there is by showing up now with what you have, doing what you can, because no one else is coming to save you. No one else can walk that path. It's yours to walk. And the longer you wait, the further behind you fall, not just in time but in growth.